Thank you, Nina and Ricky. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines.
Senator Amy Marcos, chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, has released preliminary findings from their investigation into the arrest of former President Rodrigo Duterte, and the committee's report alleges glaring violations on the rights of Duterte.
Finding was that there were glaring violations of the rights of the former president. The constitutional safeguards guaranteeing liberty and due process of law were not observed. No warrant was issued by a Philippine court. The arrest did not fall within the exceptions of a warrantless arrest.
And the news starts now. Legal counsel Salvador Panelo, or attorney Salvador Panelo, said the Philippine Supreme Court can compel the government to return former President Duterte to the country and explain why he was detained without probable cause. Now, the ICC's arrest warrant is unlawful because he said it lacks jurisdiction over the Philippines post-2019 withdrawal. Here's more.
Wala tayong jurisdiction mula noong March 17, 2019 kasi final natin yon 1 year before. Kaya wala na jurisdiction. Ngayon sabi naman ng ICC, hindi. Under the Rome Statute, kahit nag-withdraw kayo, kung nasimulan na namin ang investigasyon, ay may jurisdiction pa rin kami sa inyo. Obligado kayo na mag-cooperate. Pero ang problema, yung investigasyon na tinutukoy nila, sinimulan nila hindi bago mag-withdraw, kung hindi after mag-withdraw. Kailan sila nag-imbestiga? Kasi yung si Patu, ano naman pangalan ng special prosecutor, humingi siya ng permiso in September of 2021. 1 year and 7 months after the withdrawal, saka lamang sila nag-umpisa ng investigasyon. Isa pa, yun ang warrant of arrest na inisyo ng ICC. Kahit ay pagpalagay mo na valid, nakalagay din sa Article 59 nila. Bago maging valid yan, padaan mo muna sa local court, sa judicial authority. Ganon din ang sinasabi sa extradition natin. Bago mo isoli o isuko ang isang mamamayan, kailangan mag-file ka muna sa lokal na hukuman. Kaya wala lahat yan, nalabag yan. Kaya yung interim release na sinasabi nyo, pwedeng gawin niyang batayan na pansamantala siyang mailabas sa hulugan. We have to go beyond the Duterte coming back. Lalampasan ho natin yan. Ang mas matinding issue rito ay ang bansang ito sa pamamagitan ng hakbanging ginawa ng pamahalaan sa pagsuko kay Presidente Duterte illegally ay ang pagsuko ng soberentiya ng bansa. The government, through its officials, surrendered the sovereignty of this country by surrendering a Filipino citizen to a foreign tribunal that has no jurisdiction over this country. That is not only an insult to this country, but that is offensive and in derogation of the Constitution, and more importantly, it is a surrender of our sovereignty as a free nation and free democratic country.
Senator Amy Marcos, chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, has released preliminary findings from their investigation into the arrest of former President Rodrigo Duterte, and the committee's report alleges glaring violations on the rights of Duterte.
Finding was that there were glaring violations of the rights of the former president. The constitutional safeguards guaranteeing liberty and due process of law were not observed. No warrant was issued by a Philippine court. The arrest did not fall within the exceptions of a warrantless arrest. Meanwhile, General Torre invoked 125 article of the revised penal code only applying to warrantless arrest. The constitutional safeguards for the right to liberty of abode were also disregarded. No court order was issued mandating that the former president be taken out of the Philippines against his will. Former President Duterte was deprived of the right to be visited or to have conferences with immediate family members under Section 2F of Republic Act 7438. General Torre admitted he did not allow Vice President Sara Z. Duterte to visit former president in Villamor Air Base, contrary to RA 7438. Former President Duterte was further denied the right to be brought to judicial authorities under Article 59 of the Rome Statute. The former president was also denied the right to apply for interim release under Article 59 of the Rome Statute or the right to apply for bail under prevailing jurisprudence on extradition. However, during the public hearing of March 20, here at the Senate, the Secretary of Justice insisted on the inapplicability of the Rome Statute. But a DOJ certification signed by Prosecutor General Richard Fadulion stated very clearly that the DOJ made the following determinations. As competent authority of the custodial state, the arrest issued complies with Article 59 of the Rome Statute. To recall, DOJ spokesperson Clavano released a statement last March 13 saying, ang naging role namin ay competent judicial authority. Kami na ang nag-attest na lahat ng proper processes ay ginawa. Similar to Prosecutor General Fadulion, the DOJ spokesperson showed that the article cited in the Rome Statute had been complied with. Therefore, it's apparent that the DOJ first tried to convince the public that the requirements under Article 59 of the Rome Statute were complied with, and then later on, when such stance became untenable, decided to ditch Article 59 and the Rome Statute altogether and pursued another theory, extrajudicial rendition, and invoked RA 9851, particularly Article 17.
A major controversy erupting in Washington, new revelations in the Signal messaging scandal involving Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and a U.S. military operations in Yemen. The Atlantic has published transcripts showing Hegseth shared live updates about us, including launch times for F-18s, drones, and missiles just before the attack. Critics argue this exposed sensitive details while the administration insists no classified information was shared. Take a look.
Nobody's texting war plans.
U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth continued to insist on Wednesday that no classified information was shared in a group chat on Signal that mistakenly included a journalist. This after screenshots of a chat released by The Atlantic showed Hegseth posted highly sensitive plans to kill a Houthi militant leader in Yemen 2 hours before the military operation was carried out. But Hegseth, en route to Guam, continued to dismiss concerns about sharing sensitive information on a commercial messaging app.
There's no units, no locations, no routes, no flight paths, no sources, no methods, no classified information. You know who sees war plans? I see them every single day. My job, as it said atop of that, everybody's seen it now, team update, is to provide updates in real time. General updates in real time, keep everybody informed. That's what I did.
On a visit to Jamaica, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who was also part of the group chat, acknowledged to reporters that a mistake was made, but dismissed concerns about any impact on the military operation.
Obviously, someone made a mistake. Someone made a big mistake and added a journalist.
Is it classified, the information?
Well, the Pentagon says it was not. And not only did it say it was not, they make very clear that it didn't put in danger anyone's life or the mission.
Earlier, the country's top intelligence chiefs faced another grilling on Capitol Hill about the incident, this time from House Democrats, including Representative Jason Crow.
It is completely outrageous to me that administration officials come before us today with impunity, no acceptance of responsibility, excuse after excuse after excuse. It is outrageous and it is a leadership failure, and that's why Secretary Hegseth, who undoubtedly transmitted classified, sensitive operational information via this chain, must resign immediately.
The main person who was involved in this thread that a lot of people want to talk to is Secretary of Defense Hegseth. And a lot of questions were brought up regarding his drinking habits in his confirmation hearing. To your knowledge, do you know whether Pete Hegseth had been drinking before he leaked classified information?
I don't have any knowledge of Secretary Hegseth's personal habits.
Director Radcliffe, same question. Yes or no?
No, I'm going to answer that. I think that's an offensive line of questioning. The answer is no. I find it interesting that you want to... I'm going to answer. You asked me a question, you want an answer?
No, listen,
you don't want to focus on the good work that the CIA is doing, that the intelligence community...
Director, I reclaim my time. Director, I reclaim my time. Here, I have huge respect for the CIA, huge respect for our men and women in uniform. But this was a question that's on the top of minds of every American.
Tulsi, you and I came into the Congress together in 2013. And Cash, you and I was serving on the Intelligence Committee when you worked on the Intelligence Committee. And John, you and I are both from Texas, and we both served together on the Intelligence Committee. The idea that this information, if it was presented to our committee, would not be classified, y'all know is a lie. That's ridiculous. I've seen things much less sensitive be presented to us with high classification. And to say that it isn't is a lie to the country. There is no way, having sat on this committee for 9 years, that somebody would come in with that information and give us something that says unclassified, you can walk out of this room with this information and give it to whomever you want. With all respect, you and I worked on the committee at the same time. Tulsi, you and I came in together. I've never had an issue of beef with you. John, you and I are both from Texas. Y'all know that's a lie. It's a lie to the country.
In the other chamber, Senator Roger Wicker, a Republican who leads the Pentagon's Oversight Committee in the Senate, joined calls for an independent investigation into the matter and said the texts appeared so sensitive that, quote, I would have wanted it classified. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt downplayed the controversy.
I would characterize this messaging thread as a policy discussion, a sensitive policy discussion, surely, amongst high-level cabinet officials and senior staff.
The White House also played down the idea that Hegseth or others would lose their jobs, saying President Donald Trump still had confidence in them.
Well, yeah, Mike Waltz, I guess he said he claimed responsibility, I would imagine. Had nothing to do with anyone else. It was Mike, I guess. I don't know. I was told it was Mike. Hegseth is doing a great job. He had nothing to do with this. Hegseth. How do you bring Hegseth into it? He had nothing to do. Look, it's all a witch hunt. So I think Signal could be defective, to be honest with you. And I think that's what we have to, because you use Signal and we use Signal and everybody uses Signal, but it could be a defective platform, and we're going to have to find that out.
A potential shockwave for the auto industry. President Trump has announced a 25% tariff on imported cars set to take effect April 3rd. Experts warning this move could dramatically increase prices for American consumers and disrupt production, sparking immediate backlash from key trading partners. Take a look.
What we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff. We start off with a 2.5% base, which is what we were at, and we go to 25%.
U.S. President Donald Trump said Wednesday that a 25% tariff for imported cars is coming April 3rd, a trade war escalation he's been threatening for weeks. Auto industry experts say the move will drive up prices and stymie production. Nearly half of all cars sold in the US last year were imported, according to research firm Global Data. Trump, who sees tariffs as a way to raise revenue to offset his promised tax cuts and to revive a long-declining US industrial base, spoke about his plan at the White House.
This will continue to spur growth like you haven't seen. Before I was elected, we were losing all of our plants. They were being built in Mexico and Canada and other places. Now those plants largely have stopped and they're moving them to our country.
Meanwhile, Trump said in a proclamation he'll grant a reprieve of up to a month for imports of auto parts. They'll be subject to tariffs on a later specified date, but no later than May 3rd. Trump's announcement drew swift condemnation from the European Union, and Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney called it a direct attack on Canadian workers.
We will defend our workers. We will defend our companies. We will defend our country, and we will defend it together.
The US imported $474 billion worth of automotive products in 2024, including $220 billion in passenger cars. The biggest suppliers were all close US allies: Mexico, Japan, South Korea, Canada, and Germany. In Asia morning trade Thursday, automakers led losses on the Tokyo Stock Price Index. Toyota shares lost more than 3% to become the biggest drag, while Honda and Nissan also fell. Meanwhile, Mazda shares fell 6.4% to become one of the worst performers in the Nikkei. The Center for Automotive Research says the new vehicle levies are likely to drive costs of cars higher for consumers by thousands of dollars. They say it will hit new vehicle sales and result in job losses, since the US automotive industry relies heavily on imported parts. The auto tariffs will follow the day after April 2nd, when Trump is also expected to announce global reciprocal tariffs. Those are aimed at the countries responsible for the bulk of the US trade deficit. However, the US president said on Wednesday the measures may not be the like-for-like levies he has been pledging to impose.
No, we're going to make it all countries, and we're going to make it very lenient. I think people are going to be very surprised. It'll be, in many cases, less than the tariff that they've been charging us for decades.
Since taking office on January 20th, Trump has announced and delayed tariffs on Canada and Mexico for what he alleges is their role in allowing the opioid fentanyl into the US. He also set tariffs on goods from China for the same reason.
Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba said Tokyo will now put all options on the table in dealing with Washington's announcement of a 25% tariff on automobile imports. Speaking at the meeting of the Japanese Parliament's Upper House Budget Committee, Ishiba questioned whether Japan should receive the same treatment as other nations, given its level of investment in the U.S.
We must consider the appropriate response to this announcement. Naturally, all options are on the table. We are one of the biggest investors in the United States. In fact, we are number one. When we consider this, is it right that all countries are treated the same? We have been making this point and will continue to do so. Japan has made substantial investments and generated significant employment in the United States. This is not the case for every country. We invest in America, we hire people, and we pay the highest wages.
Shares in Japanese automakers fell sharply in early trade today. Automobiles made up of 28.3% of Japan's total exports to the U.S. in 2024, the biggest ratio among all items, according to the Ministry of Finance data. As President Trump moves forward with new tariffs, a starkly different message is emerging from Asia. The Chinese Vice Premier, speaking at a regional forum, is calling for greater openness and cooperation, directly opposing the protectionist trade policies gaining traction in the U.S.
Openness, cooperation, and economic globalization are essential for building an Asian community with a shared future. After decades of development, Asia has become the world's most dynamic region with the greatest growth potential. And one of the most important lessons from this success is to actively open its doors and integrate itself into the world. We should jointly safeguard the free trade system, uphold open regionalism, and resolutely oppose trade and investment protectionism.
South Korea is battling its worst wildfire disaster with blazes doubling in size, charring over 33,000 hectares and killing at least 27 people. The Houston fire, now the nation's largest on record, is spreading rapidly eastward, fueled by high winds and dry conditions. Acting President Han Duck-soo declared a critical situation as more than 120 helicopters fight the flames across mountainous regions. A helicopter pilot died in a crash during firefighting efforts. Historic sites, including Gunsa Temple, have been damaged, and teams are working to protect UNESCO World Heritage Sites. 3 experts attribute the fire's unprecedented spread to climate change, with limited rain expected to offer relief.
It feels really hopeless. The fire has completely destroyed everything here, so there's nothing left to continue farming with. Now, I have to do everything myself. I have to buy everything and restart from scratch. After 10, 20, 50 years of collecting things, the fire has burned it all down.
Taiwan launched civil defense drills to simulate how to respond to a large-scale disaster like a tsunami or attacks on critical infrastructure. The drill in the southern city of Tainan was held under the auspices of President Lai Ching-te's new Whole-of-Society Defense Resilience Committee, set up last year to prepare to deal with natural disasters or other emergencies such as an attack by China, which views the island as its own territory. The Tainan drill simulated scenarios such as a tsunami after a massive offshore earthquake and explosions at a passenger port terminal. Speaking to participants after viewing some of the drills, President Lai said these were the first live drills for the committee and involved around 1,500 people, adding that there would be more next month.
Our aim is that we hope Taiwan's society can be resilient, so it can appropriately respond when there are large-scale natural disasters or large unexpected accidents with many casualties, or changes in the regional geopolitical situation that we cannot not be prepared. As the saying goes, prevention is better than cure, and we should rely not on the likelihood of the enemy not coming, but on our own readiness to receive him.
And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back. North Korea leader Kim Jong-un oversaw the test of AI-powered suicide drones, emphasizing unmanned control and AI as priorities in arms development. He also inspected upgraded reconnaissance drones designed to detect tactical targets on land and sea. For the first time, North Korea unveiled an airborne early warning aircraft, potentially enhancing its aging air defense. State media images showed Kim boarding a large 4-engine aircraft with a radar drone. Analysts suggest North Korea is converting Russian Tu-76 cargo planes for this role, though its operational capability remains unclear. South Korea's military noted the aircraft's size making it vulnerable to interception and speculated on possible Russian assistance.
The unveiled airborne early warning aircraft today still requires further evaluation in terms of its operational effectiveness and utility. If you see it, you will know that it appears to be quite dull, heavy, and vulnerable to interception. We believe that the internal devices and components may have connections to Russia, and the model itself is an upgraded version of the one that North Korea previously owned.
Kim also reviewed new reconnaissance electronic warfare and attack systems. Photos showed a fixed-wing UAV striking a tank-shaped target and an unmanned surveillance aircraft resembling the U.S. RQ-4 Global Hawk. South Korea's security advisor previously stated North Korea received Russian air defense equipment in exchange for sending troops to assist in Ukraine, where they are believed to have gained drone warfare experience. And now we take you to Chile, where a contentious fishing bill sparked violent clashes between protesters and police. Now the protests turned chaotic as demonstrators breached a security gate and clashed with riot police who deployed water cannons, tear gas, and batons. At least one officer was injured and several protesters were detained. The heart of this conflict lies in the proposed fishing bill. Initially, the lower house approved quotas favoring artisanal fishers, allocating, for example, 70% of hake and 90% of cuttlefish to them. However, Senate revisions drastically slashed these quotas, tilting the balance towards industrial firms. Now, protesters are accusing the 5 senators of dictating the future of artisanal fishing in an anti-democratic way.
Quotas have been set at 70% for artisan fishermen and 30% for industrial ones. However, they were changed by the Senate Fishing Commission. This is what angered us because they didn't respect the discussion that lasted for over a year in the Commission of the Chamber of Deputies. Then, 5 senators said no, and they cut our quotas in a totally anti-democratic and dictatorial way. In the end, 5 people can't decide the future of artisan fishing. This new law will remain for 30 years. This is what brought different groups and fishermen from the Chilean coast here.
Our country is surrounded by sea. We're mere sea, but people barely eat fish. Why? Because the fishing industry uses it to produce fish meal to feed salmon farms, which pollute our sea.
The fishermen argue that industrial firms prioritize fish meal for salmon farms, leaving them with scarce resources and threatening their livelihoods. Chile's fishing industry is a $474 billion sector dominated by industrial firms like Zona Pesca, who control the majority of exports.
Nature's light show dazzled in Finnish Lapland. The northern lights, or aurora borealis, painted the night sky over Rovaniemi, a city on the Arctic Circle. Photographers say the display, lasting over half an hour, was exceptionally strong. While auroras are frequent in polar regions during the equinox, this one stood out for its brilliance, making March a prime month for viewing.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thanks for joining us. Good night.